Hey y'all. Today I'm thinking about a quote that's I've read before and someone brought it to me recently, which is you're the villain in everyone's story. Uh, and that's okay, or not being able to tell your side of the story and being okay with that. And the underlying theme being understanding that you've harmed people, or there's people who don't like you, or you've wronged people and they feel that way. You've let's see taken actions that have negatively impacted them, and that's like the consequence of it, right? And it's about learning to sit with that, which is hard for a lot of us who come from people pleasing backgrounds, or well, that's really it. People pleasing, I feel like, also is a really people pleasing feels like a really it's like a label for being conditioned as a child to care about what your parents thought about you, be it through violence or shame or whatever mechanism they use, right? Because why else would I care about what people think about me if I'm learning? I've been really reflecting on how, the first several years of your life, definitely the first two, I would say, I mean, all of them, right? But really up until 7, the first 7 years of your life, so important what you are being fed, right? Food wise, what you're seeing, the relationships around you. When you cry, how they hold you, how they respond to you, how you get your needs met, how people feel about you getting your needs met, right? So, anyway, sidebar, that's just something I've been really thinking about. The impact of that on your entire frame of mind, right? Like, not just, yes, your perspective, but like how you literally see the world and organize information, perceive things as safe or dangerous, as kind, as inviting, as off limits. Those are things that you would have been like taught from a real young age. My coach always said, the files into which you organize your information are decided by the time you're in the playground. Like on the playground is when you're learning very much. Oftentimes, you're learning about what flies, what doesn't fly, how you need to act to get things, how people treat you, how people react to you, right? Like that's a real thing. And so in thinking, that's just like a sidebar, like I said, thinking about this stuff. And back to what I was saying about being a villain, it's very upsetting to then, when you get older, trying to be a good kid. And I think no matter how you act, you don't, even people who want to be bad to the bone, I feel like nobody wants to be perceived as shitty, and worthless and waste of space. Like, we don't want to feel those kinds of bad feelings about ourselves. Um, and I feel like when you hear the word villain, especially the way that we treat villains in movies in our culture, is like, kill them, get rid of them. They are terrible people who cannot be saved. They have chosen this life of violence. They are irredeemable, and you must toss them out, and you must kill them. So, evil people don't be dying. You gotta really murk the fuck out of them in movies and shit. So it gives you a lot of feelings about being a villain, right? And I think what's also interesting is the person who told me this is classically, I would say, a good person, right? Never really was a bully, always really kind, very accommodating, and their journey is about learning to be less accommodating, taking up more space. And so when they hear about being a villain, it's like a lot to think about. Oh, I'm a good person, and there are people who think of me as not good. And when I heard it, I was like, I feel that. I can feel that's what this person is feeling. And for me, it feels different because it's like, I have been a villain. Like, I was a bully. I actively delighted in other people's suffering. I've been manipulative. I've been bad, as you would say. Unconscious, conscious, like, if we're talking about impact, not intention. I have done things that have hurt people. When I was younger, yeah, like, through hitting people intentionally. And then as I got older, it wasn't necessarily intentionally, but it would still come off as hurting people. And obviously now the narrative around villains is that hurt people. So we are learning a lot of backstories around people, like even like the Joker getting this really, different interpretation. Or I didn't watch Cruella, but telling her whole story so that she's not even really Cruella, like to skin the dogs and stuff. Because Cruella is somebody who skinned dogs. I didn't watch the movie, but I watched Ryan George's pitch meeting of it, and he always succinctly ties things up in a really funny way. And he was saying, so what happened at the end? So this is the Cruella who skinned the dog? Oh, well, maybe she didn't do that. It's like, no, she did that, you know? So we can take that too far, too, sympathizing with the villain. It can go kind of way left. Because it's important, I think, to build empathy and understanding. Like, for somebody to hurt another person, they are deeply hurt. You get what I'm saying? Like, the connection between your humanity is distorted to the point where you can hurt somebody else. So it's just real interesting. I'm not gonna get into all that right now because that's a lot of thoughts that I wasn't prepared to talk about. But yeah, in thinking about being a villain and realizing, I don't really like that. I don't really like that title. It doesn't feel good. And thinking, and I guess it's been a lot of me moving through it, right? Changing my behavior, changing my actions. So I don't hit people anymore. Like that was like a little kid thing when I was, I think before I stopped doing that in 7th grade. How old are you in 7th grade? 12, something like that. And like, I guess with manipulation and things like that. Manipulation. When was the last time I manipulated somebody? I don't know. I don't think I can't think of the last time I intentionally manipulated somebody. I was probably pretty young. Like 18. Maybe like 20. Something like that. Crying. I feel like emotional manipulation can look like crying. Using your tears like, so you're saying that, or you're going to leave me like this. That's definitely manipulation. But yeah, that was several years ago. Yeah, and I think I don't know, the journey right now has really been about just holding those moments and like, not feeling bad about them. Because I realized when I was younger, there was no space held for being bad, right? Like, I don't know, my mom would beat me if I did something wrong that she didn't like give her an attitude. That was the biggest thing, which was usually because she was screaming at me about something, and I was like, and she's like, oh, there's an attitude. So really my expression was attitude to her. So many thoughts about, I'm in the phase of remembering, so as I think about my childhood, think about how I was taught, and thinking about being a villain, like, villains aren't often turned into villains in their 20s, or like suddenly an event happens that turns them into a villain. Sometimes. But it often seems like they have very troubled childhoods. A lot of fear in their childhoods. So, I feel like I haven't spoken about the past in the way that I used to talk about it a lot. But as I read The Body Keeps Score, and as I remember, my body remembers the things that I've experienced. What it meant for me to be powerful when I was a kid. Who was powerful in my life? My mom, my uncle. And how they maintained their power, and how I was scared of them, why I was scared of them. And how violence was effective as a tool. Like, if they wanted me to stop doing things, they hit me, I would stop. I remember the first time I hit somebody when I was little. I was probably, I don't remember the exact instance. Like, I just remember how it felt. I remember they were making fun of me for being Asian. And that was in I had to be in 4th grade, something like that, 3rd grade. Pulling their eyes and shit. Ching chong. And I think I was like, stop that. And they kept doing it. And I think it went on for more than one day. I think I told my mom about it. And I remember her being like, well, you're Asian. So for me, I was like, okay, I get it. So why are they making fun of me? She's like, I don't know, people just be like that. And so it was like, okay, but how do I get them to stop? And she was like, ignore them. Or tell the teacher or something like that. I think I told the teacher. Teacher didn't do anything about it. Mom was like, stay away from them. Don't do the thing. And then they kept doing the shit. And now it was on the sneak, right? And it's so fucking annoying when people be like, the teacher, they said no, but I know I'm going to still do this and fuck with you. And so I forgot like I said, I don't remember exactly the instance, but I remember the moment when I was fed up and I went over there and smacked them. I think I hit them in the face or on the arm, pushed them, just like exerted my force against them, and they stopped. And I was like, oh. They're like, what? Why'd you push me? I was like, don't say that. I told you not to say that. And then that stopped. And, you know, I don't know. It was the first time that I was like, oh, shit, like, force does a thing. And nobody ever taught me. I feel like we are not taught about force in... I was not taught about force in a productive way. It was always a misuse of force. I mean, if I used my force, it was considered inappropriate. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about how there's no resources for bad people. Not in the ways that are helpful, right? Like I think about somebody who's a narcissist, for instance. That's something that I used to talk about a lot. And now you're a narcissist, you're cut off. Hey, like, what is it? Just get help? And then, yes, of course, you can just get help. But as I'm reading in The Body Keeps the Score, the only way for us to truly heal, and trauma is all about damaging connection, the way for us to heal is reconnecting, learning how to connect with ourselves, first of all, and also being able to connect with other people. It's like necessary. Like if you think about babies growing, babies cannot grow up in a box by themselves. You put a baby in a box, you couldn't have babies take care of each other. There has to be somebody to take care of them. You know what I'm saying? Because we need to connect and learn in that way. And so if you never learned that, if you've never been held or cared for, you don't know how to be with yourself, no one was ever with you, being by yourself doesn't seem to be the solution, right? And it's like, you don't need to be around people. Like, okay, an extreme example, right? If you're like a murderer, you probably don't need to be around people that you're gonna murder, right? And also, while you are in a space and you're like, I don't know, jail is a lot. I don't want to get into prison abolition conversations right now. Jail is a lot, but mostly it's because you're not treating people well in there. It's like a warehouse, and it's violent, and it's dangerous, and it's treacherous in there, versus if it was actually a facility of rehabilitation, where these folks are connecting with other people, talking about trauma, dealing with their behavior and their actions. That sounds foreign when we think about prison, because that is not what it's not what they're doing in there. But anyway, thinking about there's no tools for that. People feel like when you do something wrong and I can't understand you and you broke the rules, then go the fuck over there, because you're not part of this society no more. So you just gotta go over there and figure it out. There's no resources there are now so many resources I've seen on nonviolent communication. And that is amazing, because I did not have that growing up. I did not learn how to communicate non-violently, and it really affected my shit, my relationships. So, as I sit with this, like, being the villain in the story, I don't know, I feel like I've had a lot of stories in the past about being a monster, or being like, if you really knew me, you'd not like me type things, and sitting with, like, deep feelings of not liking myself. What was that? I was gonna say self-loathing. Doesn't feel quite like that, but like, I don't know, self-rejection almost. Yeah, that's what it's felt like. And I've long since stopped calling myself a monster. But I don't feel necessarily like a monster, or even like a villain. Sometimes I do feel like a villain. I think because I'm also very intelligent, so sometimes it feels, I don't know, it feels like I'm a super villain. I could like be real conniving, like maybe my whole life, maybe I'm just, I get into some strange thoughts about myself. So it's been this time period of sitting with those thoughts that I have put away a long time ago. And it's not like, okay, so I'm a villain, fuck it, I'm about to go and wild out and be a villain. But it's like, how do I feel about this identity? Yeah, and it makes me sometimes want to cry. Makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, and I guess it helped, and this is what I realized, this is what like shame is. And that's why it's helpful to be with people who care about you and who can remind you, like, yeah, and also people have their shit, everybody got their shit. it doesn't change the fact that yes, you hurt somebody, and there's the impact of that, and the consequences you're gonna deal with that, and the feelings that come up from that, the guilt, the embarrassment, and I feel like sometimes there's a healthy shame, right? You can feel the feeling of like, I don't want to feel that again, and not in a way of avoidance, but a way of learning. Um, yeah, but we all, I don't know. We're not all taught that we all feel bad, right? Or we've all done things that make us feel bad. And we've all done bad things. Even the good people. Even people like the saying that good people are just bad people who don't get caught. Like, come on, bro. So, um, yeah, just sitting with all of that stuff. Um, that's where I'm at right now. And that's what I got for you.